Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
All right.
I was privileged enough to get an interview with Dan Flippo and John Morris at the conclusion of their training session breaking down critical incidents. This was an excellent class put on by the Savage Training Group.
Dan, would you like to go first? Would you please introduce yourself and tell us what gave you the burning desire to actually get into law enforcement?
Yeah, hey, my name's Dan Flippo. I'm a trainer with the Savage Training Group. I was a police officer in the city of Santa Cruz for about just shy of 30 years. It's interesting. I thought I was going to be a school teacher, and my oldest brother, 6 years older, hey Greg, he became a cop when I was younger, and I saw that he enjoyed the job, and I always had a passion. I wanted to really kind of help others do something with a greater sense of purpose, and I think that's what I was going through college, trying to get ready for being a teacher, when saw what my brother was doing, and then a lady, I was working with this, working with a lady that this high school surf group, and she said, you know, you'd make a good cop, and my uncle works at Santa Cruz PD, and you should probably test. And I'm like, why not? Let's give it a try. I did, and here I am. So yeah, and that's kind of cool though. Started off wanting to be a teacher, had a great career as a law enforcement officer, and check it out, now getting to teach men and women all over the country. It's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity.
Thank you. John, you want to take that question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm John Morris from Savage Training Group, and I spent 27 years in law enforcement in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I grew up in California, so I've got a connection to California. But, it's kind of funny. I was bouncing around in high school with stuff I wanted to do with my life. I've always been an athlete, a physical guy. I played football and, always involved in physical sports. And my older sister at the time was dating a guy who was in the local police academy. And I kind of thought, this seems like a pretty cool job. And he talked about how he got to drive fast and put his hands on people. And I was like, you know what, I've always had a passion for people and dealing with people. I knew I couldn't do math very well. I wouldn't have been a good, anything to do with math. And, I wasn't a great student. So after high school, I took criminal justice classes for a year in college at local community college and really enjoyed it. But this new college really wasn't my thing, and wasn't a good enough athlete to compete at that level. So I decided to go in the military. Spent 4 years in the Army and as a paratrooper, and with the intent to get out and just get into law enforcement. And stayed in North Carolina. Loved the city of Winston-Salem, and was happy to spend my 27-year career there, and just did a lot of cool stuff over my career. Super diverse career. I was able to work in all the areas of passion, but more importantly, I was able to become an instructor at a very early age in law enforcement, and taught for over 20 years at my agency all the subject matters I like, defensive tactics, physical fitness, patrol techniques, SWAT. But I'm super fortunate to be hired on by the Savage Training Group to really continue the teaching career and still have a connection to law enforcement, because I think what you miss the most when you leave is the people, and it's the hallway conversations and the day-to-day relationships and the joking around, because cops have their own way of joking, right? We have our own sense of humor. So I can come into a room of cops and people still get my sense of humor, but it's just an honor to be able to do this.
Thank you both for your answers. I appreciate it. I truly do appreciate it. Love hearing the backstories on how everyone gets into law enforcement, why they get into it, and why they have a successful and longer career. Because you hear everyone who gets in and gets out, or just job jumps all over the place. That's a new trend. But I do want to talk about the class that I just got to sit in for the past 2 days. It was a wonderful class. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot in it. I hope you guys had fun instructing it on critical incidents. We talked about barricades. We talked about hostage negotiations, potentially. We talked about CPR, things like that, containing and point man and reaction teams, and how important they are. Can you guys discuss just a little bit about your trainings? Not too much, because I know you can't give the class away, but just a little bit of some of the things that we touched on.
You know, one of the things I think that's exciting about this company is that there's a couple things. I'll talk about the course material, but is this company, every one of the instructors, and I try to say this humbly, is like are subject matter experts in what they teach. So you're not going to have a training outfit that, you know, there's one instructor teaching 10 different classes. Like it's very, very kind of finite. And I think that's what we're very passionate about tactics. We've developed a lot of our career around both in the SWAT world, but then on patrol, our passions for patrol. And so some of the techniques we're talking about, we are big on clarity. How do you make complex calls clear and easy? Somebody asked me once, how would you sum up this class? Well, you heard it the first 3 days. Leadership, decision-making, and sense-making. We put those things together, then we can dictate some tactics. We have better resolutions. So the containment, point, react. I'll start with containment. I'll let you finish point and react. Sure. You know, realistically, CPR saves lives. Very simple to remember, but it's also critical roles that if we can get those established early on a call, man, we're getting ahead of the call. So containment, you know, that's just locking something down, denying the mobility of the suspect, and preventing innocents from coming in. But we talked about a lot about in containment, you don't always have to set up containment on a place. What if containment really gives you stabilization through isolation of the suspect and denying his access to victims? So a simple thing in the C of the CPR is, hey, how do I achieve stabilization? And if I can isolate the suspect, I can remove his access to victims. Man, I have time to come up with some good plans and outfox my adversary and increase the safety for the men and women I'm working. Then there's that point react thing.
Absolutely. I'm gonna step back for just a second and say, you know what, the adrenaline rush about law enforcement, there's so many things in that career that I love about the adrenaline, but it's not the driving fast, it's not the use of force scenarios, it is controlling the chaos. When you can go to a scene and you can control that chaos, that's just such a rush, and it just gives you such a sense of satisfaction. That's what CPR does. CPR is that overlay that allows you to control the chaos, and containment's is a huge part of that, because if we can't contain the scene, we can't control anything. But your point officer, the P in that is that point officer. That's the first officer on scene. And what I fought for my entire career as an officer was, I want to be that first guy on the scene. I want to be there when the parts are falling off the cars. I want to be there when that lady's running out of the house. I want to control that chaos. That point officer is going to give you that real-time intelligence to see what's going on. And then we can build this thing out. As the supervisors get on scene, we get containment. We get your react team set up, because in this high-risk incident, you know, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the response to high-risk incidents, the critical incidents, and having that react team and a good experienced react team that has a plan for each of these absolute emergency reactions that they're going to have to take, it just brings a sense of calm to that chaos, and it's feeding that adrenaline that we need in this profession.
Super important. It seems so easy, and I think it really is if we can keep it that simplicity. And again, everything we talked about, I think a lot of you see that, hey man, good leadership, knowing how to deploy people, man, really starts bringing in calmness and chaos, and it's infectious. And here's what, here's what I do know. We're not talking out of ego or cockiness. We know this stuff works. And how do we know? Because the greatest privilege we have is, one, working with the men and women all over this great country. But the other thing is we get texts frequently where men and women say, hey, remember me? I was in your class. Hey, I applied what we did, and I caught the crook. We had one guy, brand new deputy, that ran a shots fired domestic violence call. He got on scene, and his sergeant's like, keep running it, Boot. You're doing a great job. Then the lieutenant got on scene later, is like, man, you crushed that call. He had this incredible sense of confidence, and I was honored. Oh, dude, thanks for sharing, because then that, look, it seems simple, but if you can put these things in place, then you know what you're trying to achieve, get some good plans going, and it works. And I was so stoked for this young officer to be like, man, I did a thing, and I got some recognition for it, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that's keeping that guy in this profession, right? When you go there and you win, and you're recognized by your supervision, that's just keeping that cop in this profession, and that's what we need in this day and time. With like you said, Cleve, bleeding people out of this profession, that's a win. And if we can keep doing that, gosh, it's a huge victory.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear it myself. I came into the class thinking I knew a lot on patrol and eager to learn more. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to come in with a big head or anything, but being able to work patrol and figure things out and have fun on calls, and then to hear things from a different aspect, or kind of question why we do the things we do or don't do the things we do, or some of the things we should do, is an eye-opening experience. And I love learning some things that I may have already known but just didn't know how to actually make it make sense, or actually physically see it. And like, if this happens, then you do this. If this happens, it clarified like a whole career within 2 days. And I think that's
Right.
necessary. And I was happy to sit through it, believe it or not. I'm hoping I'm not giving you wordplay or making it seem like I came in and I had a great experience is what I'm trying to
Yeah, and I hope, obviously you have a lot of experience, and one of the things that we talk about is for experienced people, sometimes it's good. I thank you for sharing that, because it's like, I come in and we all have that, we get on a call and you got the self, man, am I doing the right thing? And the decisions I may making on the right scenes, and sometimes it's good, and maybe we said something that you already knew, but we put it in a different terminology, gave it a little bit more clarity. But also I hope it gave you confidence, because now you're like, not ego, but confidence, like, hey, look, what's going on in this cage of mine, actually, I'm on the right path. I gotta keep putting the work in. But I've learned that, cool, now I've got the concepts, I understand why I have these concepts, and now when I get down there, I got more confidence, man. That's very powerful. I'm glad that we were able to give you some of that.
We get so specialized in law enforcement, and you can go all these classes. You can go to this interview class or this interview class, or underwater knife fighting, or whatever it is. It's so specialized. Where we lose sight of is the basics. And that's what's so exciting about this class, is because we're bringing things back to the basics. And just like the sports analogy I used at the beginning of class, the team who does the basics the best is going to win. And if we can do the basics the best we can absolutely do it, it's a win every time.
Again, thank you guys. What makes you? Why is Savage Training Group so important for the training for law enforcement officers, whether they're new, seasoned, or soon to be on their way out the door, or even executives? Why do you think that this training is important?
Good. So I've been with Savage Training Group a little over a year, and what drew me to this group is the fact that we bring clarity. Savage Training Group is going to bring the clarity behind the why we do what we do. And one of the things we harp on is we do things in law enforcement because we have to. We have to do this. We have to do that. Well, I want to dig in why. Why do we have to do this? And we get stuck in this rut of we have to do this or we have to do that. Officers don't understand the why behind it. And I'm not saying we don't have to do that particular task, but know the why. And knowing the why brings clarity. I'll go back to what Dan said. We're not going to throw up a PowerPoint and read it to you. I can give you a PowerPoint, you can read it, and you can learn the same thing by me reciting what's on the board. We are going to describe, we're going to use, for lack of a better term, we're going to use war stories. But I'm going to tell my stories from a sense of, hey, this is what I did and probably didn't work really well, and this isn't a good example of why you probably shouldn't do it. I think we learn more from our failures. So I'm going to go out there and say, hey, look, and then I'll give you some pro tips. Hey, this is where we made a mistake and we made some adjustments and we went forward. The Savage Training Group is going to put the right instructors in the right subject matter areas. We have people teaching officer-involved shooting courses that have been on an officer-involved shooting team in a major law enforcement agencies. We have guys teaching internal affairs courses who have worked internal affairs at some of the biggest agencies in the United States. Dan is, I'll sing his praises. He is taught for the National Tactical Officers Association. I have 21 and a half years of SWAT experience. I mean, everyone on this team is an expert on what in the area they teach, and Scott Savage does such a good job of placing those instructors in the right position And the vetting process for instructors is extensive. I can attest to that. But he's just not going to hire somebody who's like, hey, I'm looking for a retirement gig. We're going to give you quality law enforcement training, because you know what, truthfully, cops deserve it. Cops deserve it, because we can go back to all the failures of law enforcement in this country and say, how many times cops need better training, cops need better training, cops need better training. Well, let's look at the situation. Did training occur, or did learning occur? And for Savage training, we are going to guarantee you that the learning is going to occur. We're not just going to blast out some PowerPoint and people are going to clean it. We want to ensure, by training our instructors, by keeping it and watching the group, to know that learning is occurring. And we talk to each other during every break. We talk before class, we talk after class. Hey, what worked and what didn't work? That's why I love Savage training. That's why I'm happy.
Yeah, and we're willing to, that learning, that focus on learning versus just conducting training. There's freedom. We have set curriculum, but there's freedom in our curriculum. Like we talked, you don't know that, but some of the subjects we talked about, it's like that wasn't in our presentation, but the class brought it up and it tied to what we're talking about. So we're going to go down that path. We're going to allow that because it's going to reinforce what we're presenting anyway. So there's a lot of freedom. Like we don't even like, I'll give you a little secret. That whole 2-day class, there's not like one PowerPoint for the class. It's all broken up on subjects, so that way we can pivot and focus on the needs of the students. And that's what's super exciting for me as an instructor. You know, Scott says this, the owner of the company says this very often. He goes, he wants instructors that are passionate, humble, hard for me to say humble, I'm talking about myself, and hungry. And I think this cadre that we have, we are, and we're very passionate about the subjects matter. We've all got a very solid why we're doing what we're doing. And it doesn't have to do, I'm just gonna say, it doesn't have to do with the money. Guys that are motivated by money, training for an after career, you probably wouldn't fit in. It's like guys that are passionate. We want to make law enforcement training better. We want to make information sticky. So Cleve, 4 months from now, when you go to a call, you're going to remember, a little voice is going to kick off in your head. You're going to be like, oh dude, I remember that we talked about in class, and you can call plays very quickly. We want that from you. And I think that's what's so exciting. I mean, the cadre, I'm honored to be part of the cadre, but here's the other thing. Not to give all the secret sauce away, Scott spends a lot of time training us. Like every year we meet together, we get professionals from outside that train us to be better instructors, and that's where we've got to be hungry. I know he teaches some of the classes. He spends hours researching the local problems, the local case law, so it's real for the student. It's not just like, hey, we'll go here, present our ideas, and leave. So it does take a lot of energy, but it's also cool to be a part of, because I think you can attest to it. It resonates then. It resonates in the class, and it makes it more important to you as a student or the person learning that, hey man, this is specific to me.
And those people who are thinking about bringing in Savage Training Group, just know that we're not going to come to your jurisdiction and say, hey, this is how we did it in North Carolina. I don't know how you do it in Pennsylvania. We're going to put in that work ahead of time to know how you do it in Pennsylvania. I'm going to know what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court says. I'm going to know what your district says. I'm going to know what your jurisdiction does, because I'm going to dive in and research your use of force law. I'm going to research your deadly force statutes. I'm going to do all that research ahead of time. Then I'm going to apply it to our training and tailor make it to your jurisdiction.
Sounds good. Thank you for the explanation. And it kind of segues into the final question I had, the end game goal. You explained you're passionate about being an instructor. You want to get the most current information out there from state to state. Where do you see, what in a perfect world, where would you see law enforcement, or where would you like to see law enforcement go in the next 3 to 5 years per se?
I'll take that. Well, one, I think law enforcement training has to be less siloed. We take so many topics and we hit on that topic and then we break and we go. I mean, really, that's not how the patrol works. We've got to, we talk about the skill set of sense making. Sense making is just getting a call. And as we talked about in the class, it's not call type. You go to domestic violence, it's a domestic violence call, but that call's got variables. It's got nuance. It has its own flavor. And can you identify what you're going to have to do to kind of weed through it, and what intel you need to make that better decision? And I hope as we go through, we're creating those skill sets and building the confidence to recognize, like, oh, I was dispatched to this call, therefore this is how I handle it. Boom, boom, boom. I'm willing to really look at it and go, well, okay, cool. It is a domestic violence call, but this one sounds like the husband's left. So now I can start decompressing things. And it's a different call versus when there's some immediate life priority issue, and I'm now prepared for a potential hostage rescue. Same DV call, different variables. I've got options that I can go to that I can quickly. So I do hope law enforcement training focuses more on that, on some of those, and that's hard. One of the things also is, for lack of a better word, patrol's getting younger and younger. It's always been young, but we're losing people to retirement, and not as many people are signing up, and we've got to figure out a way. That's why through our filters thing, we're trying to figure out a way. How do you take that 15-year vet, all the experience, the ability that they can make quick decisions and come to conclusions like, oh, I know this, this, and this. I can weigh thin slice, as Malcolm Gladwell says in his book, Blink. I can take information, quickly make a decision, and then and come to some resolutions, man. And that's, so in our filters things, that's what it is. It's almost like that matrix. I wish that law enforcement, we can make it so kind of simplified and clear that we can just plug into that recruit's thing, and then they can quickly make decisions. And hopefully you saw that clean in the class, that we're things that we're presenting, even though it's a complex problem, how do we simplify it to make quick, easy, confident, and thought out, tactically sound decisions? That's honestly where I hope law enforcement and training goes to more and more. And then the other thing we talked about in class is knowing the why. Remember we talked about, we'll give all the secret sauce away, but we were talking about high-risk car stops. Why do we do a high-risk car stop that way? And a lot of people, you get blank, well, they know why they do it and how they do it, but why are we doing these things? And what if I understand the why, that if my variable changes and the car's in a different position, or if it's against a wall and I can't put in the normal formation, it's fine, man. If I know the why, I can make adjustments on the fly, and I can still try to accomplish the goals of the why of that training and apply it. And I hope that's where we can get in law enforcement training, that people clearly understand the why, because I can take the test. Here, I'll finish with this. I always joke, there's nothing worse than a person that's been to one tactical course. Why? Because they try to take that tactic and apply it to everything. Well, if I can understand more things and I have a deep understanding of the why, well, then I can go to a call and I go, well, it isn't this, but I can adjust it to get to here. Yeah. And that really, how do we quickly get these and God bless the men and women that are joining this job in this modern time. It's a tough job, and cops, I think you'll agree, starting off, what they have to do, they're twice, if not three times the cop I was as a young 21-year-old. Way back, as he says, back in the 1900s.
Right, 1900s.
But so it's like, how do we take care of our young people and our old people, but how do we quickly get them up to speed? Because experience is great, but life is too short to experience all the experiences that are going to get you where you need to be. So we need to take training, decompress it, in some aspects, simplify it. Sounds easy. But then allow them to be able to have confidently come to quick decisions and know why they're coming to those decisions. At the end of the day, as we talked about in class, them being able to articulate it, because sometimes we're not so good at that,
Absolutely. I can sum it up, and ditto to all that. I can sum it up with my take on it is back to the basics. We have gotten over-specialized in law enforcement for too many years, and being a cop in the 1900s, I saw such a trend in law enforcement when we got really, really basic, and then we got really specialized. We started to branch off into all these special units, and we tended to tailor our training to that and got very specialized into some niche things that we didn't need to be into, or we didn't need training all the cops. Because let's step back. What do we see on the news? What do we see on the news when it breaks bad and it's on the news? We see the beat cop. We see the guy in patrol. We see the guy who's responding to that call. And he's not doing the basics correctly, or he or she is not doing the basics correctly. So we need to get back to the basics and say, okay, let's train our patrol division. We need to train them in decision making. We need to train them in sense making, and going to a scene and realizing, what do I have? But now there's so many factors that are coming into play with law enforcement, especially when you get in the realm of use of force. We have pre-force conduct. We have failure to intervene. And we're not training our officers in these areas extensively. We have states that are rolling out new use of force policies, and they're throwing new deadly force policies rather, and they're throwing it out to officers in a PowerPoint. That's not adequate, and that's not fair to those officers. Because what's happening now in the trend in law enforcement is cops are not, quote unquote, losing their house. They're losing their freedom. We need to be very, very distinct in training these guys in the basics and putting this in academy training and spending time in the academy on case law, on the legal stuff, and what these guys can and can't do. Now, taking that we've extensively taught them and apply it to their day-to-day life and their day-to-day life and patrol, and how to make sense of what's going on and how to make that decision, because their supervisor is not going to be in every single part. That's the training that needs to occur, and that's the shift we need to make right now.
Gotcha. Thank you both. You answered all my questions. You did a tremendous job. And again, thank you for the instructional piece. These past 2 days have been phenomenal. It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Clay.
Honor. Thank you, Clay.
Cool, man.
That was awesome.